Hi, I'm Jen Masoja, and welcome to this series all about operating disaster resource centers in response to an emergency. We'll be covering lots of helpful topics that are designed to help you work at a disaster resource center, feeling confident and able to help people with plenty of resources and knowledge backing you up. And thank you for taking the time to learn and for getting prepared before disaster strikes. In our segment today, we'll be talking about some general information about disaster resource centers. What are they exactly? What can people get there? And when are they activated? Let's start with the what. Disaster resource centers, which you'll hear called DRCs, really do two things in the event of a disaster. They're places where we can figure out what people need and where we can connect them with what they need, whether it's at the DRC or somewhere else. What they need could just be information, it could be services, or it could be a dormitory, or any combination of those things. Some DRCs will have dormitories and others won't. Some will have certain services and others might have more or different services. So DRCs aren't always shelters, but they are definitely never just shelters. We're a place where people can get a variety of resources and services that they might need. DRCs are activated on a case-by-case basis for any situation where there's a significant number of people who may need services, like a large fire, hazardous material spill, a landslide, large-scale police activity, or even a flood. We activate the DRC as early into the event as possible. We can scale the services provided at a DRC, depending on the event. There are lots of different services we can provide, but there are a few services that we make every effort to have up and running just as soon as possible. We have what we call accessible information services. That just means that we keep guests informed about the incident. We always use information approved by the incident commander. Sometimes we have formal briefings, but we also have information boards, and of course we'll help find answers to questions as they come up. We also have assessment and referral services. We're constantly trying to figure out what people need, and we either make requests to get more services at the DRC, or we refer guests to outside services. Disaster behavioral health services are there to support people coping with the impacts of disaster. We always have some level of food services. Snacks and water are always available at the DRC, as long as we can still get supplies. We do what we can to support the special food needs of infants, children, and older adults, as well as people with food allergies or with cultural and religious food needs. We know there are a lot of people who won't seek assistance if they have to leave their pets. Every jurisdiction is different, and we'll talk more about that in a segment on animals. However, every jurisdiction does what it can to provide things like crates, veterinary care, boarding, and transportation. Livestock are always managed separately. Pets are always welcome. Sometimes they're sheltered with people and sometimes nearby. The DRC needs to be a safe environment for guests and staff. People can come and go as they wish. Signing in and out helps us make sure that we always know how many people are inside the DRC. That way, we know we have enough food, sleeping areas, and supplies. And in case of evacuation, we have to make sure everyone has gotten out safely. And we always make sure that we have some form of translation and interpretation services available at the DRC. Okay, then we have other services that we consider non-essential. Those services might be necessary, but they might not be the responsibility of the DRC. For example, if any homes are destroyed, homes may be a long-term recovery issue, so we have separate plans for that. The DRC coordinator and the Emergency Operations Center will make the decision about what non-essential services will be provided, whether at the actual DRC or through other means. Here are some of those types of services. The DRC may provide emergency clothing and personal care items. As with many non-essential services, our partners can sometimes help. In cases where the emergency is related to a crime, victims' advocates help people connect with services. At the DRC, we might be responsible for connecting people with services and doing things like screening applicants or helping with paperwork. Sometimes we help people get financial assistance from either public or private resources like rent assistance and food stamps. Some of those resources might already exist, and others may have to have been activated for the specific emergency. You probably remember we said a DRC isn't the same thing as a shelter. Now, sometimes there is a dormitory function, but we also refer people to other shelter sites or even find them hotel space, depending on the size of the emergency and how many people have been impacted. Basic first aid supplies are available at any DRC. Other medical needs will be assessed and either handled there at the DRC or sometimes referred to a medical facility as needed. The DRC can provide information about when and how people get their personal items returned. Sometimes the recovery, processing, and the return of personal items will happen at the DRC, but sometimes guest personal items will need to be held as evidence. We sometimes offer what we call respite services. Those are like childcare and adult care. We do our best to give caregivers a chance to take a break when they need it. Another important thing we can offer during emergencies is reunification services, where we can help people reconnect with their family and loved ones. We also partner with organizations that provide spiritual support and represent a variety of faiths. In a traumatic event, spiritual support can help alleviate suffering and facilitate coping. We make sure that the spiritual leaders who work with us have had all relevant trainings. The DRC may provide transportation services to help guests find public or private transportation. Also, when an evacuation is ordered, we help people get from the incident site to the DRC. Depending on the event and what people need, we also provide lots of other services. Check with the DRC coordinator to see what we can make available to guests. And finally, how do we operate disaster resource centers? What's the attitude of our staff like? Our goal is to remove barriers to accessing the DRC as much as possible for people who've been impacted by a disaster, without compromising the safety of our guests and staff. You'll learn more about how we reduce barriers in the segment on our values and guiding principles. But above all else, everyone is welcome in the DRC. We have a few phrases that help sum up how we operate. One is getting to yes. A lot of people might have some sort of barrier between them and disaster relief. Like having a pet, but not finding any shelters that can house their pets. These are cases where we try to use our flexibility and our problem solving to cover the need. Even if we don't do it directly, we will figure out a way to make it happen, to get to yes. Another phrase is the World Health Organization's look, listen, and link. Let me tell you about a time when this came up. One time when I was working helping people in the DRC, I noticed a young man. He was kind of standing away from the other people. He had his hoodie pulled up over his head and he was staring at the floor. I came up with a bottle of water, casually introduced myself, and offered him the water. Luckily, he accepted it, and he talked in a quiet voice. Eventually, though, he told me that he came to the DRC all on his own, and he was really worried about where his mom was. He needed to charge his phone so he could call her. I found him a phone charger and a quiet place for him to call his mom, and I let him know that I'd be back in a little bit to check on him when he was done with his phone call. So that is what Look, Listen, and Link is all about. Paying attention to the cues and listening to what people express as their needs help us connect them with resources. And sometimes it's as simple as a phone charger. Before we finish up today, I want to share one last very important thing with you. Everything that we do in the DRC is driven by our values and guiding principles. We have an entire segment in our series related just to that, which I really hope you'll check out. You'll see that our values and guiding principles come up time and time again through everything that we do. All right, that's it for this time. We talked about what a DRC is, when it's activated, what people can get there, and a little bit about the way we operate them. I hope our series is helpful to you, and definitely check out our other topics. And of course, thanks for watching.